You're now tuned into the freshest podcast in the 209. It's time for the Squadcast.
Like we always do about this time.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Delta Squadcast. This is episode 4. I'm joined with the homie Daniel. Say what's up, Daniel.
Yes, sir. You know the situation we out here.
Yes, you do.
Yes, sir.
Today, we are going to be talking about Dr. Dre and his influence over hip-hop. But before we get into that, make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Delta Squadcast, the _Delta Squadcast, and on Twitter at Delta Squadcast. All right, bruh. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So I kind of started by making kind of a timeline of Dr. Dre.
Yes, sir.
So in 1965, Dr. Dre is born in Compton, California.
Okay.
And we all know about Compton, California.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Most definitely.
I've driven through about once or twice.
I actually went on a hood tour of Compton.
Really?
Yeah, and I got to see Dr. Dre's house,
That's crazy.
Easy's house, all their houses and stuff. It was pretty cool.
How did that situation go down? How'd you get?
It was cool. Well, you see, the guy who drove us around. Actually, we were on the LA Strip, with the stars and shit.
Yeah.
We were over there on the Strip, and there were these dudes just advertising hood tours and shit. And so
okay.
Yeah, so it's not even tour van and stuff. We hop in this dude's fucking Escalade.
Oh shit.
And we go to the hood, and he's like, I'm not gonna disclose his name because we ain't no snitches out here. Homie was a Crip, but he said the Crips and the Bloods allied together. His car's known in the different neighborhoods, so to make a profit.
So this man's basically like a Uber service for hood tours, then, right?
Yeah,
bro.
Okay,
hey,
we go to get that later, bro.
But you know what though? The situation is, you gotta do something to make money.
Yeah.
No.
Hood tours.
Yeah. Should.
Yeah.
Might as well be safe doing it, right?
Yeah. Shit. All right. So after Dr. Dre is born, the next significant mark he makes is in 1984 to 85 when Dre forms the world-class wrecking crew with DJ Yella.
I haven't really listened to the Wrecking Crew like that.
I did a little bit, not very much.
Mm-hmm. My involvement with the Wrecking Crew is just every once in a while at functions and stuff, and we listened to it, but I never really paid attention to it. I never took it in depth and digested it.
Well, yeah. Well, when you think of Dr. Dre, you don't really think of the Wrecking Crew.
No, you think of NWA. You think of the Chronic. You think of
that West Coast hip hop.
Yeah, you think of real gangster shit.
Mm-hmm. World Class Wrecking Crew is more later
disco.
era disco, yeah.
Yeah, it's towards the end of disco, because you had Sly and the Family Stone, Earth, Wind and Fire in those days.
All
that shit was
and
spinning all
night. And it's the same vibe, yeah.
Yeah, it was spinning all night. Everybody was getting cool off it, and I think with Dr. Dre's involvement of that, he kind of definitely took a lot of those influences and moved them up into certain areas of his music. Especially when he went solo and definitely started producing more.
Oh, most definitely. Because, that's Dre's style. It has that influence, his influences in it.
Yeah, and he samples a lot of stuff. And the way he manipulates those samples is different. None other. Because it's, he's already DJ'd for the, in the bars and the clubs.
It's just like Dre. It's him. Nobody else can do it the way he does it.
Yeah, and then, I think if you think about what Jay Dilla is to the East Coast, you would think that with Dre
to the West Coast.
And the West Coast, especially in LA area, because there wasn't many people doing it like him before that. And then especially, how he got involved with NWA, that just blew up everything.
Definitely. So speaking of NWA, moving on to 1986 to 91,
yes.
Dre joins Ruthless Records, forming NWA along with MC Ren, Eazy-E, Ice Cube, and DJ Yella. And while he's on Ruthless Records, he also goes on to produce other artists like Above the Law, The DOC, and Michelet.
See, I didn't know about the last three. I was always focused on more of NWA because that was something that I was put onto really early. In my musical ventures, it was something that really shaped a lot of rap for me. It set high standards for me.
Well, you can't mention the origins of rap without mentioning NWA.
I would say more the origins of West Coast rap.
Exactly. Oh, that's true.
There was a lot of funk going on here.
There was, yeah.
people started migrating to California, LA to start producing these records, and while they were down there producing these records, they would get money by doing performances in clubs.
Yeah.
So people were really heavily involved with that. I believe they were heavily involved with that. So
and that's like where a lot of, like where Dre gets his influences growing up in that.
Because he made a living off of it for some time. So having that experience really set him and NWA up for musical like success. Because even like Eazy-E didn't know how to rap.
Yeah, Dr. Dre's the one who put him on. Yeah.
And there wouldn't be a Ruthless Records without Eazy-E selling dope. There would have never been that. And I think he was a huge pioneer too, because of his leadership and the following that he created along with MC Ren, Ice Cube, Vanilla. They created more of a culture than just a series of guys just getting group of guys getting together and just making a bunch of music.
They were like the OG gangster rap group.
Yeah, pretty much. They were the first ones saying "fuck the police."
Yeah, they like set the standard.
Yeah, they set the standard of what guys like Nipsey did, what guys like Vince Staples, Snoop Dogg still, till this day he's making records
for sure
on the West Coast like it's from his heart. And then, every single West Coast rapper has had or drawn influence from Dr. Dre.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. If you say there is, you lying.
Yeah, for real.
For real. Then we're moving on from Ruthless Records to 92 to 96. Dre leaves Ruthless, joining Death Row. And while on Death Row, Dre releases his first solo album, The Chronic, which is like one of the greatest albums of all time. Like I can't name.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's the greatest. I think that's one of the greatest rap albums of all time.
For sure.
And that that kickstarted also, Doggy Style. That I think that also was a great album.
Well, we'll say Dre's involvement not only in Ruthless put out so many artists, but when he comes to Death Row, he creates the West Coast rap scene.
Dre basically made Death Row what it is, because it was basically just a bunch of gangsters getting together trying to make money legally.
Dude, look at it this way. Death Row was owned by Suge, who was a known blood, right? He had his homies in there, but then Dre brings in Snoop, who's a Crip.
Yeah.
But somehow they make it work.
And it's clear tension all around, but then at the end of the day, business has to be done.
It does.
And if you especially the industries right now, you're gonna want to pull your differences aside to make the most money. And if you don't put your interests aside for the betterment of the company, then dude, you're not making good music.
Up, yeah.
You're not making good music.
Exactly. And also, while Dre's at Death Row, he works with Tupac. And at this point, Tupac had already kind of solidified himself, but Dre put him to this place even higher.
Yeah, I think he definitely gave him a musical outlet, because Tupac was writing poems.
Yep.
With such weight and diversity that it moved differently. So then following that into rap, a stem of poetry, and the rhythms that he put together with the words and stuff. That's uncanny for anybody who's just getting into rap that young.
Exactly. Well, I feel specifically because when Dre starts to work with Tupac, this is when Tupac's fresh out of jail, signed to Death Row. But I feel All Eyes on Me, that wouldn't have been what it was without Dre.
Yeah, no, most definitely, dude. That whole album, dude, it was just monstrous. It was fucking great. I cannot complain at all about a single song on that album.
Without a doubt, it would have been a great album if Dre wasn't there, but he made it hit.
It made it a lot
he's
better.
The one who made he did the shit.
Yeah, and I think what a cool thing what he did was he saw talent in others. He didn't choose to just work with anybody.
That's one of his biggest things though.
Yeah, he's not gonna fuck with you if you're not making some type of noise.
Yeah.
In his area, if people aren't talking about him to him, he doesn't know who you are.
For sure, yeah.
And Anderson .Paak, for example.
Yeah.
Dude, he nobody really knew about him until he
put him on Compton.
Dre.
Yeah.
He put him on Compton, and then he produced a bunch of his records, let him record at his house, dude skyrocketed, and now everybody knows who he is.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
And it's mind blowing how like his influence on new artists or younger artists, it helps them. It propels them into a better field of music that allows them to be more serious.
Definitely, and like he's done that with like so many people, not just new artists, like artists that are like becoming like old artists now.
Yeah,
like there's like hella people like Eminem.
Yeah.
The Game. Who Exhibit. Like hella people that like have had like this influence that are like starting to become older, but even though like they're starting to not like put out records anymore, Dre's still working with newer talent.
Yeah, and like the crazy thing about it, like the whole Eminem situation, is that he was so young, and like Tupac, he was writing a lot, but didn't have the outlet to speak unless he was at ciphers or freestyle battles, stuff like that. But then once I think Dr. Dre found him, he literally just gave him a golden plate and said, lay everything you have right here and we'll take it to the top.
Well, like look at it this way too, like even like considering to have Eminem as an artist, Dre was taking a risk for himself too.
Yeah.
But he saw that in Eminem. And he was like, look, I know you could do this, so like I'm gonna blow you up. Like he's like, I'm letting like you risk my career.
Yeah, and like, I think it's just taking that chance on someone that's like allows them to grow a lot. Because even with artists who are doing different stuff today, like Thundercat, for example, like he's doing all these different types of genres and throwing it into his own genre. He's making a genre, so he's setting that footprint. So when people come after him, that's already there. So he's helping them like how Dr. Dre helped Eminem push up. And it's all about a cycle. Like you can't keep good music going if you don't have a good cycle and a good foundation. And he's just done such great work with that.
Well, like even like how you were saying, like with the genre mixing and stuff, like Dre was like an early pioneer with that too.
Always, with the samples and stuff.
Yeah, with the samples and like the old school music, hella like that's like his style. He made that, like that's what we like think of when we think of West Coast rap. Like Dre made that style.
Yeah, always G-Funk era, all that stuff. All those smooth samples, right airs.
Well, like think about that too. Like G-Funk era, like Warren G.
Yeah,
Dre had a huge influence over Warren G because that was his stepbrother.
Yeah, right. So like he even then like the samples out there are pulling. You got Roy Ayers, Isaac Hayes, Booker T and the MGs. All these types of samples just coming out, and it definitely shaped a lot of the standards for how samples were being done.
Cause they were sampling before Dre, but when Dre created this standard,
it basically
did something else.
Yeah, I think it definitely became a basically a guideline, a set standard of not perfection but quality that you have to meet to get considered.
Well, you could kind of not perfection, but you can kind of consider that as close to perfection, because when you think about it, when someone says, "I made it on a Dre beat," they're like, "I fucking made it."
Yeah. And you've reached the standard of satisfactory, but then after you want to keep going, because every time Dre hit a milestone, he didn't stop.
Yeah,
he kept going, and I think that's what really made him different amongst other producers at that time, and especially other rappers.
Especially just artists in general. Most of them kind of have an expiration date. They just stop after a certain point. Dre's still going. This is his life. He just wakes up and goes in the studio and just makes beats. This is it. That's him. That's what he does
every day. It's just astonishing how the drive of one person can shape a whole culture.
Yeah, for sure.
And it shaped the culture. Involved everybody, every race. Doesn't matter who you are. If you were from that side, if you were from the West Side, you knew about Dr. Dre. You knew about Tupac. All these dudes you grew up listening to, you fit underneath that culture. And I think that early culture set a lot of guidelines for today's standards of West
Exactly.
Coast
Like,
rap.
who doesn't turn up if they're from the West Coast when they hear California Love? Like, come
Right.
on.
Right. I don't think I've been to a single party where that song did not play.
Exactly.
It's, California Love is like that statement for the whole West Coast. But then, especially us being from Stockton, you get Matt Dre.
Yeah,
You know,
that whole
those-
Yay area influence,
Yes,
Fred.
all of that. And that music, started because of the West Coast rap in
Mhm.
LA. People started moving to Oakland, people started moving to the Bay, doing their own styles, doing their own things, and they just kind of merged. And then now you hear a lot of crazy stuff, like, dudes like Mike Sherm killing it, Aceto, all those dudes they're slapping, they're just straight heat when it comes to West Coast.
For sure, but like, yeah, cause it kind of like it spawns low key from Dre, like.
Yeah, it stems from the original groups, the people who, lay down these stepping stones to further ahead this music so it didn't die out.
We've established that Death Row, as it was when Dre was there, was this fucking dynasty, like a monster. Like, no one could touch him. Like, that was the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So, 1996, Dre leaves Death Row and forms his own label, The Aftermath. So, while he's on Aftermath, he signs and produces artists like Eminem and Exhibit, as well as like Mary J. Blige. There's a couple other people too, but like that's the top of my head.
Yeah, as far as or the early 2000s Dr. Dre stuff, besides like listening to the current 2001, I hadn't really invested much into it, just because it wasn't something I was listening to, because we were little kids, we weren't really listening to that,
Yeah.
until, we heard it and we started investing in it. But I never really took a dive into modern Dre as much as probably you have. I mean,
yeah. Well, like I kind of like my dad listened to the shit my dad listened to growing up. So like I always heard like the Chronic and until 2001 and like
like I heard that shit too, bro. Like, I collect a lot of records, so I bought the Chronic as like my first record.
Yeah.
Like
that's an essential to have on.
I went to
record,
Amoeba and I picked it up and I was like, I need to buy this. I bought that day and I've been listening to it, on the regular ever since. And then shit, I was looking through cassettes that I own too. I found the fucking Chronic on cassette, original print.
That's
so,
dope,
it's
bro.
like that album, like you have to have it on every platform. But if you don't have it on CD, record, cassette, VHS, your tape phone, it doesn't matter, bro. You have to have it on every platform.
Like think about that. Like I'm sure there's like a lot of other albums that have, but like that album like exists across like every platform you can think of. So in '99, Dre releases his second solo album, which is 2001, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And the following year in 2000, he goes on the Up and Smoke tour.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the Up and Smoke tour because, again, like it's something I haven't really studied, and I think I'm definitely going to. But I think when I was younger, I had more drawn attention to Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
As that was more exposed to me than Dr. Dre was.
Well, yeah, Snoop like that's something about Dre too, though. He's kind of like he doesn't really like make a presence in the public like that.
No, not in those kind of albums. And I always admired the great contributions that he made to the Doggy Style album, because that was also one of the first rap albums that totally turned me out, because I was like, dude, it's
a classic.
This
dude.
lyricism and this beats, the flow of it, how well it moves.
Artists wouldn't be what they are without Dre. Like Dre made Snoop. Like Snoop, his first appearance was on the Chronic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he was only 19 at the time.
Yeah.
He was real young. And he was spitting like that, between the ages of 19 and 20. Dude, like, that's crazy. That's, that's someone, if someone's coming out that hard, when they're first starting out, they're staying around forever.
For sure. And, like, it just proves to be true because Snoop's still out here making music. And, like, Snoop is, like, he's someone known universally, like, to most people. Like, most people know who Snoop is.
Like everybody knows who he is because he made himself known. Like, he was really about it. And not many dudes go up and start controversy between the East and West Coast for no reason. Not many dudes can, say fuck all them at an award show and walk away perfectly fine.
No, that was Suge.
No, that Snoop Dogg was talking about it. They all were standing on stage and shit.
Nah, Snoop said that it was cool, bro. Like, you don't remember that? Because Tupac was mad at him because he was like, look, I ain't got no beef with Biggie or nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
And then, like, he was correct, he was scared to go on the plane back home because everybody from Death Row was mad at him.
Yeah, and that started a lot of shit. And, dude, he held himself, bro. He kept making music and shit got rough, but... Dude, he stuck it out and made millions.
Well, like, you kind of see, like, a lot of people look at, like, Death Row as kind of like a tragedy. Like, they're this empire, and, like, they got a bunch of shit going on, like, illegal shit, but at the same time, they're, like, blowing up. And then they're at their height when Tupac dies.
Yeah.
And then it all just starts falling apart from there. But Snoop and Dre were able to pull themselves out of that and still, like, remain, like, monsters in the industry.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a huge controversial moment. Like, that, I think that, like, stopped the whole world for a little bit, Like, even if you didn't know who Tupac was, you were seeing it on the news. Every person who was watching the news that night saw that. You have some remembrance or what happened. Like, everybody has their own bits and pieces, but you still know about it.
Like, it's insane because, like, it was like that was like where you could take it. Like, you could saw like it could go that far. Like, people were like, how far are they gonna take it? And then that's as far as it went. And they're like, you see how far it can go. Like,
yeah, it's definitely something that has revolutionized the rap culture here in a great way. Because now people are really spitting like what they mean, there's always, you get your fucking phonies and shit, talking all this shit, they don't do anything. But like the people who are really spitting real shit, they're gonna stand around for a while if they keep sticking to their truth.
Well, yeah, and like you see, like Dre, like he only fucks with artists that put out the real shit.
Yeah.
You feel? Like, I don't know any, like, bullshit artists Dre's put out. Like, that are just, like, mumble rappers or, like, not saying anything significant.
Yeah. No, most definitely. Like, Kendrick Lamar, Anderson .Paak are, like, two people that definitely come to mind when...
Yeah, if y'all didn't know, since everybody loves Kendrick Lamar, like, I feel he's probably known universally amongst most people. If y'all don't know who Dre is, you're missing out, because Dre put out Kendrick.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a Kendrick without Dre like that. Like,
it's, again, his influence, attracting young guys and making sure they get in the studio and not the streets. It helps out. It definitely moves a lot of things forward.
And that's crazy because, like, when we talk about Kendrick and then we talk about Dre's beginning, that's almost, like, over 40 years almost.
And it has a similar parallel too. Both grew up in the same city. They both experienced similar shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's like a universal thing said by a lot of people. Like, a lot of people think, like, Compton's this place. Like, that's where they get, like, all these rappers. Like, a universal place of talent. Like, you get so many legends that come out of there, too, though.
But I think it's not about the talent. It's about the experience.
It is. The environment you grow up in.
Yeah, you can't speak on something that you didn't grow up in.
Exactly.
You
that's
can't,
like
you can't
the
wholeheartedly
most,
make that
that's
true.
The most fake shit you could do is to attest to some shit you have no idea knowing about.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people catch themselves into that, a lot of rappers do, into that mindset of, okay, I've never held a gun before, but I'm gonna rap about shooting someone.
Well, like, that's where, like, a lot of people don't realize it. Like, it's not that it's being glorified in this music. It's that people are portraying what they're experiencing in their, like, every day.
But the people who are not
like educated and like really listening to it for like its true purpose, you know.
It's the people who interpret that and take it as their own and try to make their own music with that stuff. Because we can hear dudes getting shot in Southside Stockton, and we can hear about it and read a story about it, and we can make a rap off a story about it, but we weren't there.
Yeah, we can't attest to what happened.
You can't, like, and if someone says like, "Oh, did this for real happen?" You don't.
You can't say, you'd be like, "Shit, I don't know, I wasn't there." Like,
yeah. So it just doesn't make sense to have a lot of like fake rappers or, you know, people who are carrying what they think is, you know, excellency because they're talking about something that everybody likes.
Yeah.
But nobody likes watching their best friend die, or like nobody likes seeing people, you know, their parents doped out on drugs and shit.
And like a lot of people don't get that. Like, it's not that people like they decide to rap about it because like it's cool to rap about. Like, it's because like
that's their truth. They
like
live
that's
that
their
shit.
truth. Like, this is their only way of like expressing it. Like, they're getting that out. Like,
and I think if people are going to glorify that and make their own music out of it, I think I would say take a Kanye West approach about it. Because though Kanye didn't experience that kind of gangsta shit, he spoke about it and he spoke his truth.
Yeah.
That's what made him different. And
like, he reflected on it. And like, I think one of the most important things is like acknowledging that that isn't your reality.
Yeah, and like though he was around that stuff, I don't think he interacted as much as he did because he was pushed away from that. He grew up in a different lifestyle. And so that allowed him to see what was going on from an outside, inside kind of view. And that's what I think a lot of people should do, speak their own truth. Someone's going to check you on it one day. And if you're going to be hard and talk about all this shit in your raps, and you get checked, what are you going to do?
If you can't,
No, like, if someone fucking checked Dre, you know it's lights out.
Yep.
Because he's certified. Ice Cube, same thing. He's gonna deck you if you fucking test him.
And like, we have like experiences of it. Like, we have records of it. Like, Dre like fucking like getting into fights with people who were like coming up to him and talking shit.
Dude, even them getting fucking arrested by the police.
Yeah, by the police after their concert.
Chased by the FBI and stuff. Everything. All that stuff, that's photo, video, you know, a bunch of people saw that. People can attest to that stuff. And I think that's what made them hold so long. Especially how they ended, too. They ended, I don't think on good terms, but it ended where it needed to end.
Well, look at it this way. If Dre didn't leave NWA and Ruthless, there may have never been a Chronic.
Yeah.
There may have never been a 2001, and there may have never been an Eminem, a Kendrick Lamar. So, like, while it is tragic, like, the way that it ended and they didn't end on good terms, we have to be thankful for it because it created what we have now.
And I think it ended at the right time because there were things that were shifting in the rap community. People were getting a hold of different styles, what they were doing. G-Funk started to take a larger
That's when Dre starts to develop the G-Funk style after he leaves.
And I think if you look at how Dre has changed and morphed into different forms of music, he's culturally adapting. Though he could seem outdated, he's culturally adapting to stay relative.
Especially like with Dre, like someone who immerses himself in music all the time, he knows what to listen to stay relevant.
Yep.
And how to like, and even though like when he put out Compton, it wasn't like widely received by most people. Like as it should. I love that album so much, but like people didn't like it like that. But regardless if they didn't like that album, Dre is still remaining relevant through his beats. Yeah. Like, there's so many artists that are on his beats, like Kendrick. I don't know, like, who else? There's other people, I'm sure.
Even Anderson .Paak.
Anderson .Paak, yeah.
He engineered him too a lot.
Yeah.
And they both had a really good growing relationship. And then, who else was even produced by Dre? I know Eminem was produced by Dre. Sure. What's that one Dr. Dre album that I Need a Doctor is on?
Oh shit, that was just dropped as a single, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Even had album for
yeah,
that
because I remember, dude, that was in constant rotation
Yeah,
for me. That was
an
like
album.
the one song that like definitely blew me away. I was like, this song's hella good.
Honestly, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I always liked hip hop and stuff, but like I never really got into it till I was around like 6th, 7th grade, and like Eminem was what did it for me. I don't know what it is. Eminem like ropes in so many people. Like,
he didn't really do. I mean, a couple of his songs, you know, kind of hit different for me. I was really vibing with them, but like overall, I can't say like if I had a bunch of rap records to pick through, Eminem wouldn't come to mind.
Oh no, for sure for me, like now, but at the time, but like before I got really immersed in it, but it was Eminem that led me to Dre through I Need a Doctor, and I was like, yo, like Dre.
I think that was such a great song.
It
dude.
was.
I can't. Just listening to Eminem, like for me, I couldn't really dig it like that. You know, I mean, that's his truth though. You know, like once again, it's his truth. He speaks it. That's how that's what he presents to us, the listener.
Well, that's true.
And how he delivers
that's
it,
true.
how
that
he wants
true.
us to perceive
that is
it.
True.
His rough rhymes and his, you know, extremely vulgar, you know, lyrics. He wanted to appeal to us in that way to get a vivid picture to show us, okay, I'm growing up like this and this shit sucks.
Well, yeah, that too. And honestly, without Eminem doing it the way he did it, and like without Dre like aiding him and like seeing that this was talent and it wasn't some bullshit, like he wouldn't have blown up like he did. And I feel like Dre knew he was like maybe like he had like that reminder from like when he was in NWA. He was like, you know, this shit may sound negative, but it's gonna blow the fuck up.
Yeah, and I think like shit. Like if you even take those lyrics that Eminem was spitting, you throw that on Tyler the Creator, dude. Another cultural shift, especially in West Coast music. He's from SoCal. You know, those influences drew upon him. A lot of soul influences drew upon him. He's a great producer. Like I enjoy every single Tyler album as it is. And there are so many Western influences that stem from Dre, that stem from, you know, G-Funk, that stem from soul, funk, everything, you know. It made it into something new.
Well, like Dre especially, I think he's really early where we get this picture of someone who produces their records, but at the same time raps on them too.
Yeah, and it's
like
very
you don't
hard
see a lot of that before Dre.
No, Kanye West did it. You know, Tyler the Creator's doing it.
Yeah,
Anderson .Paak's doing it. You know, I think a lot of these self-sufficient artists are further ahead and will last longer
for sure
and be more sustainable in the music industry because they are multi-faceted musicians. They're not even artists anymore
because they can like adapt.
Yes, and they know more than just what lyrics are on the page. They know what, you know, what's more than just rap. They know,
and you know, you like being like making beats and stuff, working around it, being around like rhythm and stuff, like it teaches you how to start to like rhyme on time.
Yeah.
And like how to deliver your flow and like.
And then they start going from artist to musician. They start diving into music and really knowing how things work. They start knowing how progressions work. They start knowing how song form is, like on a deeper level, almost to where like it's spiritual for them. So they start making better music, and then it continues to just be good music all the time.
And like especially with like artists that like produce themselves and like rap or like sing on their own stuff, I see artists who do that bringing like more talent to the industry than anyone else. Like not only do they bring themselves, they bring other people as well. Yeah, because they know how to work with them through that.
It's all about that hustle too. At the end of the day, it's you know, what can you bring to the table that allows us to change and make better music. And it definitely blows my mind how the hustle from a lot of top influencers in music brings a lot of change and new music.
How do you think Dr. Dre's involvement with NWA had an influence on West Coast hip hop? We kind of talked about it already, but we'll get back into it.
Yeah, I mean, once again, he definitely shaped a lot It pushed a lot of boundaries too between a lot of races and cultures.
Yeah.
Being in LA, there's a lot of Mexican people, there's a lot of Asian people, there's black people. It's all about connectivity.
And like, I see like with Dre especially, like he like made that known.
Rap is what the blues was in the 30s and 20s. That was a staple of music for black folk. That's how we got our voices out.
Exactly.
That's how we brought our message.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't gonna hear us legally, we're gonna tell you musically.
Mm-hmm. And like with Dre, especially with NWA, like that's the point, like where we see this like hidden message shit is over with. We say fuck the police.
You know, all the gentrification of black people, the deaths and the lives lost of many black people.
And like it's just building up like over and over, and then NWA is like this explosion.
Yeah, and they brought the intensity of we want what we want, and we're going to tell you how we want it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to give a fuck what we do to get it, but just know we're going to get it.
Mm-hmm. Like, and it's long fucking overdue.
And that pushed a lot of people, a lot of black people out of their, you know, oh, we're not going to make it, to we're going to fucking get shit done. A lot of young black people, too.
Well, especially, like, in the industry, too. Like, so, before that, like, we kind of get the vibe, but as soon as NWA says, fuck the police, like, every other artist that feels the same way doesn't feel the need to sugarcoat it anymore. No. They're out here putting that shit out.
Because history repeats itself. Look at right now.
Yeah,
the police brutalities is insane. It definitely should not be happening to the extent of what it is. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't happen at all. But history repeats itself. Mm-hmm. What those riots in LA were in the 60s and 70s were what they are today. Again. Yeah. All across the United States. Mm-hmm. And music like that woke a lot of people up to saying, okay, it's time to get up and just get going. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of being treated like shit. I'm tired of getting, beat down. I got to get up and do something. And that helped a lot of black communities stay together. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think a lot of black artists have a negative view by people on the outside. They don't understand them because they're different, because they're black, because they're Mexican. They come from the streets. A lot of people didn't want to hear that when it was first started.
And like, it's not even like, and like that's what like a lot of people think of it. They think of it like this glorification. It's not. It's just like their recreation of their reality.
Yeah, and I think also like stemming into Dre's musical influences that helps out as far as the way he drew from his influences. Yeah. To shape that culture that we have now. Mm-hmm. Sampling Ray Ayers, even watching that movie, they really tossed a huge coin off to him, and he's still out playing. Like, that dude's a legend in the funk and rap world because a lot of people are sampling him.
Well, even like with like Dre just like sampling like people like Roy Ayers or like Bootsy Collins.
Bootsy Collins, yes, of course. Earth, Wind and Fire. Stevie Wonder.
So like with Dre, that's kind of the first time we get like the sampling of like the old school music. But then once Dre does it, we still see it happening in the West Coast today.
Mm-hmm. It's something that always. It's basically, being a producer now, you have to have a Swiss Army knife. You know, you can't just be one tool. You have to be everything. Mm-hmm. And I think learning and knowing how to sample to a point of expertise will help you become a lot better and be more available to different types of music.
Well, especially like for producers, I feel like producers should look at like every Dre beat as kind of like an instruction manual.
Yeah, and I think, before we end, that also should stem into how he revolutionized rapping and producing. Yeah. Because though we've talked about the producing side, we could talk about further into production, the engineering side, the fine-tunings of things. Yeah. And how those things affected rappers and their voices. Mm-hmm. And I think how Dr. Dre definitely merged himself into the engineering side of things, it definitely allowed for a boost of quality. For sure. It definitely made things a lot better to the point to where you're not listening to just average music. You're listening to a musical masterpiece.
Like Dre puts his time into this. Like, this is all Dre does. He just sits in the studio messing with shit till it sounds right. And like I've heard like a lot of like artists do not want to work with Dre because he'll make them stay in there with him and like do the same lines over and over again just to get it right.
Yeah, and it's always it's for artists like him, and for artists and producers like him. That's where you need to really be on your shit. If you can't hang, you have to leave. You have to hit the door.
And I feel like especially for him, I don't know how Dr. Dre feels because I'm not Dr. Dre, but like I feel like he set the standard for himself. He's like, I need to top this.
Yeah.
And like he just keeps doing it over and over again. So I don't like see any reason for him to stop.
Yeah, and I think that's the huge influence on me because, with my music and how when I play, though it's a totally different genre, it's that things need to be done right in order to proceed and get better. Because if you're gonna be hungry about it, you have to make it a spiritual thing.
Right.
You got to do it right. You got to do what Kendrick's doing and make it a spiritual feeling. You got to do what Dre did and spiritualize and internalize this music and make it an everyday thing. And I think that's what had a huge influence on me because it definitely affected me in a positive way.
For sure. Yeah, that's something like I want to say about Dre. Like honestly, I want to say Dre is definitely my favorite artist in hip hop for like various reasons. Like I love his music, like his solo albums are some of my favorite albums of all time. But like the biggest thing for like Dre about me is like his work ethic.
Yeah.
Like this is like he's at it all the time. And like he just like stays with like he'll stay with like one track for as long as it takes till it sounds right to him. And like again, like setting the standard for himself that he like needs to meet and succeeding to do it over and over again. And like I know like that's not something that's easy to do, but he's been able to do it for like almost 40 years now.
Yeah, and he's still going. There's
like not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah, it's longevity over at the end of the day, it's longevity over short-term fame. And I think that's one thing a lot of people don't do nowadays. They want to get they think rappers get rich quick scheme, and it's not, because you can do what 6ix9ine Lil Pump did, talk a lot of shit and get real famous. But where are you in 10 years? Where are you in 5 years? Where are
and
you
like,
in
is
3
anybody
years?
fucking with you? Like
Lil Pump,
like,
I haven't really heard anything about Lil Pump that's like been major. Because I'm not gonna go out of my way to look for his music.
Dude, the biggest thing the only time I can say Lil Pump has shown up on any screen or device of mine is when he had that interview with J. Cole. I do not fuck with Lil Pump. I want nothing to do with him.
That made me look at him different, but as a person, but his music was just so trash to me. And I think like it's more of just like I'm gonna scream and yell and make a lot of noise to make a lot of money, and then I'm not gonna make anything that's quality to stand, throughout the ages. And
like, I feel like that's a part of it too. People don't realize like you gotta fail a lot to get to where you need to be going. Like
you gotta have alternate plans.
And like that's something we see with Dre too. Like, Dre I'm sure like there was tons of times before that when we've seen, but like some notable things we can see, like shit wasn't working out with Dre and like his labels and shit.
And then also look at Beats. Yeah. Because he created Beats, and
I forgot about that.
He went on a business venture. Most guys like him and Jay-Z, Diddy, all these dudes, Drake. These dudes got so big, and then they invested in business because they wanted longevity. Jay-Z's in his 50s now, but 444, everybody heard about it. Yeah. Everybody knew that Jay-Z was dropping an album.
Jay-Z didn't need to drop an album.
He didn't have to at all to make that buzz, but he did, and that album for me was crazy too.
And like, I know I love 444, bro. Like, dude, so a lot of the things, like a lot of times we see with like rappers, like we see when they're like through their catalog, their progression as an artist.
Yes.
So in 444, like almost the whole time, all Jay-Z is doing is like dropping gems, dude. He's like always, spitting game on how to come up and like hustle and like.
Yeah, and I even like, drawing back to Dr. Dre, his progression of growth throughout his albums definitely led him to where he's at now as a businessman and a musician. And I think with with that, ending on the topic of where he's at, he definitely has created an outlet for a lot of people to become a better artist. Though, he's getting older, he's still making revolutionary music.
For sure. And, like, I want to, like, how you were talking about beats, too. Did you watch the Defiant Ones documentary?
No.
You should. It's on HBO, but it's about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine and, like, their whole come up and, like, their process as, like, producers and stuff. But he was talking about, like, because Jimmy Iovine owns Interscope, which is the parent label, the Aftermath, which is Dre's label.
Yeah.
So he's talking to Jimmy Iovine, and Jimmy Iovine was like, we need to do some business ventures. And he was telling Dr. Dre how he should, like, maybe, like, do something with, like, sneakers. But Dre is dedicated to music.
Yeah.
Like, this is what he wants to do. This is his life. But he told Jimmy, he was like, man, I don't fuck with... He's like, I don't make sneakers, I make speakers. And he was like...
Oh. But ayo, like those headphones were kind of trash. Those were not worth the $350.
The low key, they were.
I can't say should I bought fake beats, bro. I was like, bro, and then I got real beats. I could not hear the difference. I was like, all right, dude, this is not the hype.
The pros are cool.
Yeah, I mean they're good like recreational listening, but like. If you're using that to get down in the studio, bro, like...
That's true.
Pick a pair of these headphones right here.
That's what I was using before I had these.
Yeah, the MX-50s. Come on now, get on them. Stop playing.
Yeah.
But hey, bro, it was cool talking about Dre. Let's get to it.
Most def. Alright, I hope y'all like hearing about Dre. Leave us some of your ideas. What you think about Dre? Did Dre have any influences over you? What influence do you think Dre had over the West Coast or rap in general? I think he had a tremendous impact over rap and West Coast and fucking hip-hop and everything, man.
Yep, and you better spread this podcast, because if you don't know, now you know. Spread it to your mom, your auntie, your grandma, your stepsister, don't matter, your brother. Let everybody know what's going on here. I'm already on the Delta Squadcast. They're doing numbers.
Most definitely. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at @the_Delta Squadcast and at Twitter at Delta Squadcast. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.